Oh my God, she's my mother. The words shattered the hospital room like glass. The young woman holding the faded photograph trembled as she stared at me lying in that hospital bed. My husband Joshua's face went white. His expensive suit couldn't hide the panic in his eyes. "Shut up," he hissed, grabbing her arm. "Stick to the plan," but it was too late. The truth was out. The daughter I'd given up 20 years ago stood 3 feet away, and the man I'd married had orchestrated the most twisted revenge scheme imaginable. He'd found my child, seduced her, married her, all to steal the $13 million I'd just inherited. The accident that nearly killed me. He'd researched that intersection for weeks. The forged death certificate, filed while I was fighting for my life in surgery. The offshore accounts. He'd been stealing from us for months. But let me tell you how we got here. How a woman who thought she had nothing discovered she had everything. And how the worst betrayal of my life led to the most beautiful reunion. If you are watching this, kindly subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. And I hope that you're safe wherever you are. The check felt impossibly heavy in my hands. $13 million. The numbers seemed fictional, like someone had added too many zeros by mistake. Attorney Michael Brennan watched me from behind his mahogany desk. "Mrs. Walker, are you all right?" I stared at the amount again. This morning I'd been counting quarters for milk money. Now I held more wealth than I'd ever dreamed possible. "Why me?" I whispered. My Aunt Catherine barely knew me. Brennan adjusted his glasses carefully. "She was very specific. Said you'd understand when the time was right." He slid an envelope across the desk. Inside, Catherine's precise handwriting. "Success requires sacrifice. You understand that better than you know. The money is a tool, not a solution. Use it wisely." The words triggered memories I'd buried deep. Those secret visits to Catherine's hospice room, reading medical journals while she corrected my pronunciation with dying breath. She'd seen something in me I couldn't see in myself. "Your husband doesn't know about this inheritance?" Brennan asked. "No." I wanted to surprise him. I thought about Joshua's cold silences lately. His bitter complaints about his dead-end accounting job. The way he'd stormed out that morning, after another fight about money. 7 years of marriage had worn us thin, but $13 million would change everything. "I need to tell him," I said, already reaching for my phone. "Take your time with the paperwork." Brennan smiled. "Congratulations, Mrs. Walker. Your life is about to change significantly." Walking out into the afternoon drizzle, I felt disconnected from reality. The cramped apartment where Joshua and I had been slowly suffocating suddenly seemed like a different universe. On impulse I stopped at Mont Blanc. The silver pen cost $800, more than our monthly grocery budget. But holding its weight, imagining Joshua's face when I gave it to him, I knew this would be perfect. Our new beginning. I called him from the car, hands shaking with excitement. "Joshua, something incredible happened. I'm coming home with news that changes everything. I'm in the middle of something, Stephanie." His voice was flat, distracted. "Can it wait?" "No, it really can't. Trust me, you'll want to hear this." A heavy sigh. "Fine, but make it quick." The rain picked up as I merged onto the expressway. The silver pen box caught the gray light on my passenger seat. I thought about Catherine's cryptic message about sacrifice and understanding. What had she sacrificed for her fortune? Family, certainly. Love, probably. But what had I sacrificed? Nothing yet. As I drove toward our apartment, toward Joshua, toward what I believed would be our salvation, I couldn't shake the feeling that Catherine's real gift wasn't the money itself, but something else entirely. The windshield wipers beat against the growing storm. I pressed harder on the accelerator, eager to share this miracle. But what kind of sacrifice would this fortune actually demand? I never saw the delivery truck run the red light. The intersection of Route 47 and Maple had always been dangerous in storms. Through heavy rain, I could barely make out the green light ahead. The silver pen box slid across the dashboard as I tapped the brakes. That's when I saw it. The truck emerged like a wall of metal, the driver's face visible for one horrifying second, eyes wide, mouth open in a scream I couldn't hear. My hands yanked the wheel right. But physics had already decided our fate. The impact came in stages. Hood crumpling toward me, airbag exploding against my face. The pen box opened mid-flight, contents spinning through space as my car rotated. My phone, showing Joshua's contact photo, flew past my head. Through it all, one thought repeated. We never paid the electric bill. Then darkness. Not like sleep, but absolute absence. When I surfaced, beeping machines and chemical disinfectant filled my senses. My throat felt lined with sandpaper. Every breath sent fire through my chest. Easy now, don't try to talk yet. A nurse with kind eyes adjusted something on my IV. Her name tag read Rodriguez. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Emergency surgery. You're lucky to be alive. 3 days. My mind struggled to process this gap in existence. Where was Joshua? I gestured at the empty chairs beside my bed. The question clear without words. Rodriguez busied herself with my chart, avoiding my eyes. Let's focus on your recovery first. Doctors came and went. They explained shattered collarbones and surgical repairs. Metal pins holding my shoulder together. Traumatic brain injury stealing pieces of memory. Nobody explained why my husband hadn't been sitting beside my bed when I woke up. By the 4th day I could whisper. The first thing I asked for was my phone. Rodriguez brought it reluctantly. Screen cracked but functional. 17 missed calls, all from Patricia, my college roommate. None from Joshua. His last text was from before the accident. Stop calling. Busy. I dialed his number with shaking fingers. Straight to voicemail. 5 tries later, I left a message. Joshua, I'm at St. Mary's Hospital. There was an accident. Please come. 2 more days of silence. I convinced myself of reasonable explanations. His phone was broken. He was searching other hospitals. Surely someone had told him. Surely he was frantic. The morphine made everything dreamlike, but it couldn't dull the growing dread. On my 7th day conscious, Joshua finally answered. What? His voice was sharp, annoyed. Joshua, thank God. I'm in the hospital. There was an accident. I know about the accident, Stephanie. Ice in his tone cut through my medication fog. What do you want? The words didn't make sense. What do I want? I'm in the hospital. I've been unconscious. I need you here. A pause. Then words that would replay in my mind for months. I don't have time for this, Stephanie. I don't have money or patience for a loser. Some of us have real futures to build. The monitor beside my bed began beeping faster. Joshua, I don't understand. I'm hurt. I'm alone. I'm your wife. Were you my wife? I have to go. Stop calling. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, certain I was hallucinating. The morphine, the head trauma. Something was causing auditory distortions. I called back immediately. Number blocked. Rodriguez rushed in as the beeping accelerated. Your friend Patricia has been trying to reach you. Maybe you should talk to her. But what Patricia had to tell me would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Patricia arrived the next morning, her face a storm of barely contained rage. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my injuries, then pulled a chair close. I didn't want to tell you like this, but you need to know what he's done. Is he hurt? Did something happen to him? No, Steph, he's fine. More than fine, actually. Her hands shook with anger as she pulled out her phone. He told everyone you died in the crash. The words bounced off my brain, without sticking. That's impossible. Look. She showed me his Facebook page. There it was. A long post about losing his beloved wife. How suddenly life was precious. How he needed time to grieve. Hundreds of condolence comments below. Posted while I was fighting for my life in surgery. He changed the locks on your apartment. Patricia continued, her voice breaking. Moved someone in already. A woman named Savannah, from that new investment firm job he started last month. She showed me another photo. Joshua at a restaurant, arm around a dark-haired woman who looked maybe 25. The caption, finding light in darkness with someone special. Posted 3 days ago, while I was leaving him voicemails from my hospital bed. Something familiar about the woman's face made me pause. The shape of her eyes. The way she tilted her head. She looked like photos of me from college, before stress carved lines around my mouth. How? Was all I managed. I went to your apartment building. The manager said Joshua had paperwork. Death certificate, will, power of attorney. All fake obviously. but good enough to convince them. My bank accounts. The 13 million. The inheritance Joshua knew nothing about. Or did he? The room started spinning. The monitor's beeping became a steady alarm as my heart rate spiked. Rodriguez was adjusting my medication when Michael Brennan arrived, his expression grave. "Mrs. Walker, I apologize for not coming sooner, but I needed to gather evidence." He pulled a chair close, voice lowered, despite the empty room. "Your husband visited my office 6 hours after your accident." 6 hours. The hospital hadn't even finished your emergency surgery. My damaged brain struggled to process this timeline. How did he know about the inheritance? That's what concerned me. He arrived with documents, a will, power of attorney, even what appeared to be a death certificate. All forgeries, but sophisticated ones. He knew exactly what to ask for. Mentioned the 13 million specifically. Brennan turned his tablet toward me, showing security footage. Watch his behavior when my secretary explained we needed official documentation. On screen, Joshua paced the marble lobby I'd walked through days earlier. His body language radiated impatience, not grief. When the secretary explained the 30-day waiting period, he slammed his hand on the desk. He's called 17 times since then. Each time with new documentation, new arguments. Yesterday he threatened legal action for deliberately withholding his wife's estate. Patricia returned with my laptop. The building manager felt terrible when I explained. Joshua told him you'd written a will leaving everything to him. Even showed him a document. She powered on the computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. "I need you to see something." The browser history made my stomach turn. 3 weeks before my accident, Joshua had searched Route 47 accident statistics, intersection collision fatality rates, how long to declare someone dead, page after page about inheritance law, forged documents, accessing spouse's assets after death. The timestamps showed him researching late at night while I slept beside him, planning for my demise while I dreamed about our future. "There's more," Patricia said quietly. Our joint bank account showed small transfers leaving for months. $50 here, $75 there. All going to an account in the Cayman Islands. The dates aligned perfectly with when Catherine's cancer became terminal. "He knew about the inheritance before you did, Steph. He's been preparing." My mind reeled. How could he have known? I'd hidden my visits to Catherine. Never mentioned inheritance possibilities. Then I remembered the life insurance paperwork he'd insisted we update 3 months ago. His detailed questions about my family's assets. Had he hired someone to investigate? "Show me Savannah," I managed, though her name felt like acid. Patricia pulled up social media profiles. Savannah Mills, 26, financial analyst. Her LinkedIn showed she'd attended a conference 3 months ago where Joshua presented about investment strategies. The same week Catherine entered hospice care. Photos from the conference showed them at networking events, cocktail hours, panel discussions. In one image, they stood close enough that shoulders touched, both holding champagne glasses. Her laugh captured mid-moment, while he gazed at her with intensity I recognized. He'd looked at me that way once, back when I was young and full of potential he could exploit. "Look at her face," Patricia said, zooming in. "Tell me you don't see it." I saw it immediately, the same green eyes I faced in mirrors each morning. The arch of eyebrows I'd inherited from my mother. Even the way she tilted her head when smiling. Like looking at myself 10 years ago, before exhaustion marked my features. "It's disturbing," Patricia continued. "Like he went shopping for a younger version of you." She pulled up Savannah's Facebook page, scrolling back years. She's been posting about searching for her birth mother since she turned 18. "Look at this." A post from last year. Another dead end in my adoption search. "Sometimes I wonder if my birth mother even remembers I exist. All I have is this one photo and a dream of finding where I came from." The attached image made my world stop. A faded hospital photograph. An exhausted teenage girl holding a newborn. The girl's face partially turned away, but I knew that profile. I knew that hospital gown. I knew that baby. "Steph," Patricia watched my face change. "Is there something you need to tell me?" The memory hit like the truck had. Violent, unexpected, transforming everything. I was 18, pregnant by a boy who vanished the moment I told him. My parents, prominent in their church community, gave me 2 choices, abortion or adoption. They arranged everything with clinical efficiency. Sent me to stay with a distant relative until birth. One photo, one moment holding her, then she was gone. I'd packed that pain so deep I sometimes forgot it existed. Now, staring at Savannah's hopeful posts about finding her birth mother, the horrifying pieces clicked together. Joshua hadn't just found a younger woman who looked like me. He'd found my daughter. Patricia, my voice came out strangled. When did Joshua and Savannah start appearing in photos together? She scrolled through timestamps. First photo is from that conference 3 months ago. But wait, she pulled up Joshua's LinkedIn. He started following her 2 weeks before the conference. Look at his search history. The searches were surgical in precision. Adoption records Minneapolis 1998. Birth mother search services. Financial conference attendee list. Savannah Mills background. Most chilling. Inheritance rights biological children adopted. He'd hunted her down, found my daughter, seduced her, and was using her as a weapon in his scheme. The monitor beside my bed started its familiar alarm as my heart rate spiked. But this time, I didn't care. Rage was burning through the medication fog, clearing my mind for the first time since the accident. That's when I noticed the final document Patricia had pulled up. A note in Catherine's handwriting, tucked into the estate paperwork. Some secrets are meant to surface. The truth about 1998 will find its way. I've watched over her just as I've watched over you. Be ready. Catherine had known. Somehow, my estranged aunt had known about the baby I'd given up, had perhaps even been keeping tabs on her. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was a catalyst designed to expose everything hidden in the shadows. We need to call the police, Patricia said. No, my voice was steady now. We need to be smarter than that. Joshua's covered his tracks too well. We need him to confess. How? I thought about Catherine's words. Success requires sacrifice. She'd built an empire by being strategic, not reactive. We're going to set a trap. Brennan returned that afternoon with more evidence. Bank records showing Joshua's systematic theft, security footage from his office building, showing his escalating behavior. Mrs. Walker, your husband has shown increasingly dangerous patterns. He might bring lawyers, try to intimidate you, even claim you're mentally incompetent. What if he brings Savannah? The thought of facing my daughter while she stood beside the man manipulating her made my chest tight. That's actually ideal for our purposes, Brennan said carefully. Her presence would provide evidence of his deception, but it will be emotionally difficult. We spent the next hour rehearsing scenarios. Patricia played Joshua, adopting his dismissive tone, while I practiced remaining calm. Brennan coached me through legal terminology, warning signs of escalation. We need to force his hand, I decided. Patricia, send him a message from your phone. Tell him you know about the inheritance. That I'm awake and remember everything, that he needs to fix this before I talk to police. Patricia typed with trembling fingers. We waited in tense silence. Her phone buzzed. We'll handle it today. Delete this message. That we means he's bringing her, Patricia said. Brennan checked his watch. They'll probably come during evening visiting hours. Less staff attention. He placed a business card on my table. Security's number is programmed. Don't hesitate to use it. After they left, I sat alone with my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back looked like a stranger. Hollow cheeks, yellowing bruises, hair limp and lifeless. But my eyes had changed most. The soft acceptance that had lived there for 7 years was gone, replaced by something harder. I thought about the 18-year-old who'd given up a baby too scared to fight. The 28-year-old who'd married Joshua, believing love meant sacrifice without reciprocation. The 35-year-old who'd hidden bills and accepted coldness. Each version had accepted less than she deserved, had bent until breaking seemed inevitable. Patricia had left lipstick in my drawer. Deep red I'd never have chosen for myself. I applied it carefully, watching my face transform. Not prettier, but more defined, more present. I arranged myself in bed, positioning pillows to support my damaged shoulder while appearing naturally relaxed. The hospital gown was deliberately loose, making me look frailer than I felt. Let Joshua see weakness. Let him think he'd already won. My phone sat innocently on the bedside table, recording app hidden behind a calculator icon. The afternoon sun slanted through blinds, casting bars of light across white blankets. By 5 o'clock my nerves sang with anticipation. Every footstep in the hallway made my pulse spike. At 5:47, I heard his voice. That familiar tone now edged with impatience. Room 314. Yes, we're family. My finger found the calculator app. 3 quick taps on the equals sign. Recording. The door opened with deliberate slowness. Joshua entered my hospital room with measured confidence, like someone walking onto a stage he owned. The transformation was complete. Armani suit. Shoes that probably cost more than our monthly rent. A watch that caught afternoon light with deliberate ostentation. He moved differently, each gesture calculated for maximum effect. "Stephanie," he said, voice layered with concern that didn't reach his eyes. "You're looking better than I expected." The casual cruelty of that word "expected" hung between us. He approached with measured steps, setting a leather briefcase on the visitor's chair with practiced precision. "The doctors called me about your condition. They're concerned about your cognitive state after such severe head trauma. Confusion, memory gaps, difficulty processing complex information." I let my eyes drift slightly, playing into his narrative. "Joshua, you came." Of course I came. He arranged papers on my bed tray. "We need to discuss your care going forward. Medical bills will be staggering. There are decisions about your assets that can't wait. Assets, not our assets. Your assets, like items in inventory." He produced a gold-plated pen. "This is a simple power of attorney. It allows me to handle complex financial matters while you focus on recovery." "The doctors." I let confusion color my voice. "Which doctors?" Annoyance flickered across his features before he smoothed it away. "Dr. Martinez, from neurology. You probably don't remember the consultation. Head injuries affect memory formation." He leaned closer. I smelled expensive cologne, not the drugstore brand he'd worn for 7 years. "Just sign here and I'll take care of everything." I reached for the pen with trembling hands, then let it slip. It clattered to the floor, rolling under the bed. Joshua's jaw tightened, but he maintained his solicitous expression. "There are other documents too. Insurance forms, hospital administration, property transfers to simplify your estate. All standard procedure for someone in your condition." "My condition," I repeated slowly. "You keep saying that. Severe traumatic brain injury, multiple surgeries, extended unconsciousness." He recited my injuries like reading a grocery list. "The prognosis is uncertain. We need to be practical about long-term care possibilities." The door opened again. My entire body tensed. Savannah entered hesitantly, designer handbag clutched against her body like armor. She stayed near the doorway, partially hidden in shadow. "This is Savannah," Joshua said smoothly. "She's been helping me navigate the legal complexities. She works in financial services." Savannah stepped forward into harsh hospital lighting and breath left my lungs. Seeing her in person made time collapse. She had my mother's cheekbones, my father's stubborn chin, and eyes that matched mine so perfectly, it felt like looking into a mirror reflecting the past. She stared at me with growing confusion, her face cycling through emotions: nervousness, recognition, shock. Her hand rose unconsciously to her throat, fingers finding a small pendant I couldn't quite see. "Hello," I managed, voice barely a whisper. Savannah didn't respond. She stood frozen, handbag sliding down her shoulder as her arms went slack. Behind carefully applied makeup, her face had gone pale. "Savannah, the witness signature," Joshua prompted, impatience creeping into his tone. "We discussed this." But Savannah wasn't listening. She moved closer to my bed with inevitable pull of gravity, eyes never leaving my face. Her hand fumbled with her bag, searching for something with increasing desperation. When she pulled out the photograph, worn soft at edges, creased from years of handling, my heart stopped. There I was at 18, exhausted and terrified in a hospital gown not unlike the one I wore now, holding a baby whose face was turned toward the camera. The photo I thought had been destroyed with all other evidence of that hidden year. "Oh my God," Savannah whispered, voice cracking. "She's my mother." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Joshua's carefully constructed performance shattered instantly. His face contorted with fury as he lunged toward Savannah, grabbing her arm hard enough to make her gasp. "Shut up. Stick to the plan." But Savannah stood transfixed, tears streaming down her face as she held out the photograph with trembling hands. "I've carried this my whole life. It's the only thing that came with me to my adoptive parents. The only link to my birth mother." I reached for the photograph, my own hands shaking. The moment our fingers touched, something electric passed between us. 20 years of separation, grief and longing condensed into a single point of contact. The scar, Savannah breathed, pointing to a tiny mark on the baby's shoulder in the photo. I still have it from the emergency C-section. They told me my birth mother almost died delivering me. I remembered that night, pain that came too fast, blood that wouldn't stop, terrified nurses rushing me to surgery. Joshua yanked Savannah backward, breaking our contact. This is ridiculous. She's confused, probably coached by someone trying to manipulate the situation. But truth was already unraveling, visible in Savannah's trembling recognition, in the photograph, capturing a moment I'd never forgotten. Let go of her, I said, voice carrying authority I didn't know I possessed. But Joshua's grip only tightened, and I realized just how dangerous this man had become. Joshua's grip on Savannah's arm tightened instead, knuckles white against her skin. She winced but didn't pull away, still staring at me with those achingly familiar eyes. You planned this, Savannah said to Joshua, voice gaining strength. The conference in March, you didn't accidentally bump into me at the networking session. You knew exactly who I was. Joshua's face cycled through calculations, trying to salvage his crumbling scheme. She's confused, Stephanie. This girl is obviously disturbed, creating fantasies. You showed me her medical records, Savannah interrupted, turning fully toward him. You said you'd hired a private investigator to help me find my birth mother. You had documents, photos of her from high school, even knew about the complications during delivery. My breath caught. The complications, severe hemorrhaging that nearly killed me, emergency surgery that saved my life but guaranteed I'd never carry another child. Details only someone with access to sealed medical records would know. You told me she'd been searching for me too, Savannah continued, tears flowing freely, that she was wealthy but fragile, that she needed someone to help manage her affairs. You said marrying you would make us a family. Each revelation felt like skin being peeled away. Joshua had crafted an elaborate fantasy, feeding Savannah exactly what she desperately wanted to hear. When did he propose? I asked, though I suspected the answer. 2 weeks ago. The day after he said you'd agreed to add me to your will. Savannah's face crumpled with shame. I should have questioned it, but I wanted so badly to believe. The night of my accident, I said, looking directly at Joshua, you were removing boxes from our apartment. Patricia found the security footage. Joshua's expression shifted, the mask finally slipping completely. You don't understand what you're talking about. 3 hours after the crash, while I was in emergency surgery, you were loading my possessions into a rental van. The building's cameras caught everything. Time-stamped license plate visible. Michael Brennan stepped out from behind the door, his presence commanding immediate attention. Joshua spun around, genuinely startled. Mr. Walker, Brennan said formally. I'm Michael Brennan, Mrs. Walker's attorney. I've been documenting this conversation along with your attempts to access her inheritance through fraudulent means. This is entrapment, Joshua snarled, but his confidence was evaporating. This is evidence collection, Brennan corrected. He pulled out his tablet, swiping to display documents. Would you like to explain why you researched the intersection where your wife's accident occurred 3 weeks before it happened? Savannah gasped, stepping away from Joshua. Traffic patterns, collision statistics, fatality rates. Brennan continued, reading from the screen. Quite thorough research for someone who claims to be a grieving widower. The room felt smaller suddenly, charged with electricity. Joshua's carefully styled hair had begun to wilt, sweat beading at his temples. The baby clothes, I said suddenly, memory surfacing with startling clarity. You found my memory box when we moved in January. That's when this started. Joshua's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. A tiny yellow hat, a hospital bracelet with baby girl Walker's printed on it, and one photograph. I looked at Savannah. He must have used that information to track you down. He hired someone named Marcus, Savannah whispered, said he was a specialist in reunion services. I met with him twice. He had so much information about you, about your family, your life, the violation of it. Joshua pouring through my most private pain, weaponizing grief I'd carried for 20 years, made my damaged ribs ache. You know what the saddest part is, I said to Joshua. If you'd just asked about the box, I would have told you. I would have shared that pain, because I thought marriage meant carrying each other's burdens. Spare me the martyrdom, Joshua snapped. You hid $13 million from me. I inherited it after you'd already decided I was worth more dead than alive. The transfers to offshore accounts started 3 months ago. Catherine wasn't even dead yet. Brennan cleared his throat. Speaking of which, Mr. Walker, would you care to explain this? He showed another document, a marriage certificate dated 5 days after my accident. The blood drained from Joshua's face as the full weight of his exposure hit him. Bigamy is a felony in this state, as is fraud, attempted theft of an estate, and filing false death certificates. 2 hospital security officers appeared in the doorway. I want a lawyer, Joshua said flatly. Excellent choice, Brennan replied, pulling out his phone. Security is already here. Detective Morrison from Financial Crimes would also like a word. Joshua straightened his tie, a reflexive gesture of control when everything had spiraled beyond his grasp. 7 years, I said quietly, and everyone turned to look at me. 7 years of marriage, and you never knew me at all. I knew enough, Joshua replied, voice bitter. I knew you'd never amount to anything without me pushing you. Transcribing medical reports in that pathetic apartment, accepting whatever crumbs life threw at you. She was supporting your dreams, Savannah said suddenly, voice fierce. She worked that job to pay bills while you pursued your schemes. Joshua laughed, ugly and sharp. Supporting me? She was holding me back. Do you know what it's like to have potential trapped by someone else's mediocrity? The words should have hurt, but they didn't, because finally, after 7 years, I was seeing the real Joshua. But could anything prepare us for what would happen when the truth fully came to light? Mrs. Walker, one security officer said gently, we need to escort Mr. Walker out now. As they moved toward him, Joshua made one last attempt. Stephanie, think about what you're doing. We can work this out. I looked at him, really looked at him, seeing not my husband, but a stranger wearing an expensive suit bought with stolen money while planning my funeral. You never knew me, I repeated, each word deliberate and final. The security officers moved toward Joshua with practiced efficiency. One pulled handcuffs from his belt, while the other positioned himself to prevent sudden movements. Joshua's entire body went rigid, face flushing deep red as reality crystallized. This is a mistake, he said, voice rising. I'm her husband. I have rights. You can't just, sir, please turn around and place your hands behind your back, the officer interrupted calmly. Do you have any idea who I am? I work at Brennan Investments. I have lawyers who will. Mr. Walker, you're under arrest for fraud, filing false documents, bigamy, and attempted theft, Detective Morrison announced as she entered the room, badge visible on her belt. She was younger than I expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Joshua's composure shattered completely. Gone was the polished executive. In his place stood a desperate man watching his world collapse. He twisted toward Savannah, face contorted with rage. You stupid girl. You ruined everything, he spat. We had a plan. You were supposed to. I was supposed to help you steal from my mother. Savannah finished quietly. She stood straighter despite tears on her face, meeting his fury with unexpected strength. You used my deepest wish against me. You knew how badly I wanted to find her, and you turned that into a weapon. The officers began leading Joshua toward the door, but he managed one last look back. You'll regret this, Stephanie. You have no idea what you're destroying. The only thing destroyed here is the illusion I lived with for 7 years, I replied steadily. As they escorted him out, his threats echoing down the corridor, the room felt suddenly vast and quiet. Savannah stood frozen near the window, arms wrapped around herself as if holding her pieces together. Brennan excused himself to coordinate with Detective Morrison, leaving us alone for the first time as mother and daughter, who actually knew their connection. I'm so sorry, Savannah whispered. If I hadn't been so desperate to find you, if I had questioned his story. Stop. I reached out my hand and after a moment's hesitation she took it. You're not responsible for his deception. He targeted you because he knew exactly what buttons to push. A knock interrupted us. Patricia peered around the door. There are 2 people here who say they're Savannah's parents. Should I? Yes, Savannah said quickly, then looked at me with sudden anxiety. Is that okay? They drove down from Minneapolis when I told them everything. Mark and Diana Laron entered with careful movements of people entering a minefield. They were exactly what I had hoped for 20 years ago. Kind faces, comfortable clothes, worn wedding rings of people who had built a life together. "You must be Stephanie," Diana said softly. "We've heard so much about you over the years." All from a teenager's imagination, I managed voice catching. "No," Mark said firmly. "From a young woman who never stopped wondering about the person who loved her enough to give her a better life." Those words broke something inside me. 20 years of suppressed grief came pouring out in ugly, gasping sobs that made my injured ribs scream in protest. Diana moved without hesitation, gathering me into her arms with practiced comfort of someone who had soothed countless tears. "We always told her," Diana murmured against my hair, "that her birth mother must have loved her fiercely to make such a sacrifice. That adoption isn't about not wanting a child. It's about wanting more for them than you can give." Through my tears, I saw Savannah crying too, held in Mark's embrace. We were a strange tableau, 4 people bound together by a decision made by a terrified teenager 20 years ago. But this was only the beginning of our healing. 6 months later, I sat in the courthouse gallery, watching Joshua receive his sentence. 12 years for fraud, conspiracy, attempted theft, and charges of endangerment they could never quite prove but couldn't dismiss. He stood in orange jumpsuit, diminished and ordinary, no longer the man who had consumed 7 years of my life. When the judge read the verdict, Joshua turned to look at us one final time. His eyes held no remorse, only cold calculation of someone tallying losses in a game he still believed he should have won. Outside the courthouse, autumn air carried scents of burning leaves and distant rain. I pulled the last photograph of our wedding from my purse, the one I'd kept meaning to throw away, but somehow never did. 7 years younger, standing beside Joshua in a borrowed dress, believing love meant accepting less than I deserved. The wind caught the pieces as I tore it methodically, scattering them like confetti for a celebration no one attended. "Do you regret the marriage?" Savannah asked, watching fragments disappear into city streets. "I regret not seeing who he really was," I replied. "But without that marriage, without his deception, we might never have found each other. Sometimes the worst roads lead to the best destinations." We walked to our cars in comfortable silence. Over the past months, we had developed our own rhythm. Coffee every Tuesday morning, dinner on Sundays, texts throughout the week ranging from profound to mundane. The 13 million had made many things possible, but the most valuable investment had been in time together, learning to be mother and daughter without weight of expectation. The foundation we established occupied the 3rd floor of a renovated building downtown. Second chances provided support for women facing crisis pregnancies and facilitated adoption reunions with proper counseling and resources. Savannah had left her finance career to coordinate the reunion program, using her skills in tracking records and understanding systems to help other families find each other through legal, ethical channels. "We have 3 new reunion cases this week," she told me as we drove to the office. "One mother has been searching for 40 years. I had returned to biomedical research with a different focus, studying genetic and epigenetic factors in adoption and separation, how biology and environment shaped identity. The work felt like redemption, turning personal pain into potential healing for others. Have you ever wondered how the deepest betrayals can sometimes lead to the most beautiful discoveries? Our apartments overlooked Lake Michigan, side by side but not connected, maintaining boundaries necessary for healthy relationship building. Most mornings I could see Savannah on her balcony with coffee, often on the phone with the Laurons who had embraced our strange extended family with remarkable grace. Diana called me weekly, sharing recipes and childhood stories I had missed. Mark sent photos from his biology classroom, where he now used our story, carefully anonymized, to teach about nature versus nurture. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, on the anniversary of the accident, Savannah and I drove to the intersection where everything changed. The city had installed a small memorial garden after a pedestrian safety campaign. Though they didn't know it marked my personal transformation point. I had brought fragments of the silver pen, pieces recovered from the accident scene that Patricia had somehow saved. That gift intended to celebrate a false future with Joshua now felt like archaeological evidence of a different person's life. Savannah carried a small flowering crabapple sapling, chosen for its resilience and ability to bloom after harshest winters. We dug the hole together in silence, physical work grounding us in the present moment. I placed the pen fragments at the bottom, covering them with dark soil. The tree settled into place with surprising ease, as if it had always belonged there. Sometimes, I told her as we stood back to observe our work. Destruction is just creation wearing a disguise. That accident destroyed the life I knew, but it created space for the life I actually needed. Savannah linked her arm through mine, a gesture that had become natural over the months. Do you think we would have found each other without Joshua's scheme?